Hello, we are Willington Scouts. Join our journey on the River Trent.
We are at the river.
We are at the River Trent, just up the river from Willington Bridge. It is very muddy and we nearly fell over.
You can see a bridge in the background. It's great architecture, made out of rolled stonework. And then you've got the river. It's really, really wide here, but it's the River Trent, which goes from Stoke up to Hull. So I think it's the third longest river in England. You've got the power stations in the background. There's 5 of them. It's now shut down and not in use. But yeah, that used to supply a lot of power.
Until 1839, the only way of crossing the River Trent between Willington and Repton was by ferry or using an ancient ford. The nearest existing bridges were Swarkston and in Burton-upon-Trent.
A local group of dignitaries pressed for a bridge to be built, and in 1835 permission was granted by Act of Parliament to construct a toll bridge between the two villages.
As the 19th century drew to a close, pressure mounted to free the bridge from what was seen as an unfair toll. After much local effort, the freedom of the bridge was finally purchased from the Bridge Trust.
August the 1st, 1898 was a day of celebration and a procession between the two villages, followed by a feast in Repton marked this great day. The centenary of its freeing from toll was celebrated by the two villages on August the 1st, 1998.
To declare Willington Carnival officially open. Thank you.
56 years ago.
Yeah.
And the news people came down.
Yeah.
And we used to live down Bogate Lane, so it was always flooded. And what we used to do is, you used to get lots of rubbish coming down from Burton. We used to get these big polystyrene slabs. And we used to throw a dart on a piece of fishing line, get the slabs of polystyrene, and use them as rafts. Because you could go all the way up the floods then. And we made some boots out of this polystyrene, like little feet rafts. And we would go in with stilts, so you wouldn't fall over. And we walked all the way around Bargate Lane on them. And the television, I think it was ITV Today in them days, they were filming at the time.
You were famous.
That's it.
River barges used to come from Gainsborough because it was a tidal port. All the way up here, there was a wharf just there. The river barges could get as far as Burton-on-Trent. But here there was a wharf where they load the cheese out and bring take ale and cheese out and bring steel.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah. The exchange of cheese and ale from Burton.
Yeah, well.
And steel and bringing steel and...
There was a cheese factory in Willington.
That's right, yeah. It used to be the biggest export.
So the area that the wetlands is now on used to be a gravel working pit, and it's owned by Severn Trent Water, I believe I'm right in saying, but it's managed now by Derbyshire Wildlife Trust and has turned into this wetland habitat. And as you can see, there's a big old fence and a big gate which is keeping beavers in an enclosure. So part of the whole reserve has been fenced off. And just over a year ago, they released 4 beavers into the site, so 2 pairs, 2 males and 2 females, and they've been living on the site ever since.
How will the beavers affect the wetlands ecosystem?
Yeah, that's such a good question. So beavers are what we call ecosystem engineers, which means that they change the landscape around them to suit what they need. And what that does, it creates new habitats, it creates new areas for different wildlife and different invertebrates to be able to thrive as well. So they build dams and they build lodges, and lodges are where they have their homes and where they give birth and where they feed in winter.
It's like a little house in a dam.
Yeah, exactly. So beavers were hunted to extinction in the UK, but they've been reintroduced in lots of places across the UK, and they were reintroduced here in 2021, and before that it was 800 years without any beavers in Derbyshire, so a long time for us to not have beavers. And by the process of making their dams and their lodges and creating areas of deeper water, they do what we call coppicing of trees. So in some areas there's definitely signs of them chewing the trees and taking the trees. We'll be able to see hopefully be able to see one of the lodges they've made. One of the pairs of beavers has given birth already, so there's two kits, so the young beavers are called kits, they're on the reserve as well. It's not the clearest to see, but you can see a big, almost like a willow tree that's been felled by the beavers, and that's the making of their lodge. And that's where they'll shelter in the winter and have their kits.
Oh yeah, there's 3 hubs in there. You don't really know what it is.
Yeah.
I'm Bill Newton, Quarry Manager, Cemex Willington Quarry. This is Hugh from York Archaeology. We quarry sand and gravel, and where you were this morning on the wetlands used to be a sand and gravel quarry. So that land is what we term restored and put back to a use after it's been quarried. You're interested in the river and the history of and the way the river is and what it does to shape everybody's life. Tens of millions of years ago, this whole area was covered by ice. It was a glacier, and that glacier picks stuff up, moves it around, grinds it down like in a big paste, and then when it either stops advancing or retreats, it deposits material. That is how the sand and gravel was formed, and that is what we're quarrying today. Okay. Part of that process is we have to do archaeology because we have a responsibility to look at what was there before us. The thing is with the River Trent, it's really, really good at creating stuff, but it's equally as good at destroying it. What you see today is a very civilised river that's been way back when the river was a much slower, and it was like individual streams, not like one big concentrated thing. These are what we call channels, paleo channels, and this is where the river's moved over the years.
Willington, when we started doing the work, we got information that the land surrounding the quarry had settlement evidence from the Neolithic all the way up to the Anglo-Saxon period. So houses or villages for over 5,000 years. But also, and especially with the rivers, one of the important things was the confluence. So that's where the Dove and the Trent meet. Over 400,000 years ago, the River Dove and the River Trent used to be part of an ancient river called the Beitham. So that was, I think, 3 ice ages ago. When the ice age ended, it broke up the river and it started forming what we see as the rivers now. The earliest humans used to live beside rivers. The rivers were your water, you drank from them. But not only did you drink from them, but animals drank from them. You've also got fish in there. And as farming started up, the waters were just great for putting on crops. It was also sometimes the safest way to travel and communicate with one another. So that's why we love rivers in archaeology. Well, I love rivers in archaeology anyway, because it can tell a lot. A few of the times we've been here, we've found materials like this, right in the middle of the river, the old river channels. They're big wooden structures, and we think some of them are fish weirs, so they're fish traps. So we have found a few of these, and it's amazing. Yeah, so we've got one of these here. This is one of the smaller ones. So that is still wood. and it's a few hundred years old. Yeah, so it's been driven into the gravels, and because the water's been flowing in as well, it gets stuck in clay, and that means that this wood, which if it's on the ground, it'll usually rot away, it's been perfectly preserved. It's almost as good as if you cut it down when you had it. And the wood, because that preserves very well, and that can just tell us a lot more, because we can send those to labs to get analysed, and that can tell us a lot more about the local environment, about the wildlife that used to be there, that used to live by the rivers, also what might have been next to the rivers and how people used them.
What have you spotted over here?
I'm doing some recordings of the different birds, and so like the birds taking off and landing, and I'm not sure which birds they are.
It's such a massive site, isn't it?
But you can see with the amount of birds that we can see now, it's created a really nice habitat for lots of different species. So some birds will stay here all year round and they'll feed here all year round. Some will come just for the winter, so they'll come from places like Siberia and Russia and escape the cold winter from there and come here during our winter. Some will come here to breed, some will just come here to feed. There's been an osprey here recently and they tend to just stop off. So they're travelling back down to Africa at the moment, but they would have stopped here in order to feed and get energy for their journey.
It is very nice to see that all of the environment has now been given back to nature, and it can be nourished by all the animals and the wildlife here. It's really nice to see.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right, there is a lapwing, yes. Flying around. Yeah.
I think over there, there are a few lapwings around. Because I was looking this and I saw that they've got quite dark wings, but they've got quite white bellies.
Hello. Hello, Tony. Tony, this is Charlie.
Hello, Charlie.
How long have you lived in / near Willington?
I've lived in Willington for 28 years.
Tell me about your experience living in Willington.
I love living in Willington, apart from when it floods. But it's a lovely village and there's a lot of community spirit. That's what I like about living in Willington. People help each other, so if some people are struggling because of the water lapping around their back gardens, the rest of the people will go and help them. In retirement now, I volunteer for the National Trust in a variety of different roles. And I walk my dog and like coming up here, enjoying nature. I'm on the footpath group for the parish council, so I'm not a councillor. But I believe passionately we should open up the countryside so that people can enjoy it, look at the nature, enjoy the wildlife. And I'm beginning to sound like a leaflet now. But
how has the river changed, and if it has changed?
I think that the river is cleaner. I think it's maybe a little bit cooler because you've no longer got 2 or 3 power stations pumping reheated water in. And I'm sure that's had an impact on the wildlife and the nature. Willington used to have what you'd call a little epiclimate. Because of the hot water from the River Trent, the temperature around here was a little bit higher, so the weather would tend to go, I'm demonstrating the weather going up but then back down.
Yeah, because you've got power station near Clay Mills, you've got Willington Power Station, you've got Rugeley Power Station, you've got Radcliffe Power Station, all using the Trent.
The river is calm and the current is slow-ish. The river is looking very clean and beautiful along the horizon of all the banks.
I would love to live by the river. It's always been my dream to live by a river because I love lots of water sports and I love being in water. I don't know, it just makes me feel free. My anxiety just disappears. What is it like living by the river?
So we've got like a house, and then we've got like a bit of a patio, and then there's like a massive field that's like a floodplain. So like where the river is, when it comes up, it'll like all flood. Ever since I remember, like I've always gone in with like my wellies and stuff. Yeah, we got some like random things. Got some like chilies washed up, like a 10 kilo metal tub of chilies. A lot of footballs and tennis balls.
Bottles. When he was little, he used to go out with a wheelbarrow and pick all the rubbish up with a wheelbarrow. He used to get quite upset that somebody had chucked all this in his river. So from day one, he's been taught river safety, as in not going in. How old were you the first time you went in?
12, 13. I've slipped in once, twice. Like, because I was fishing and I leant too far and then slipped and went for a swim. Like, it can be quite calm, but like when it's like quite high, like it's been raining quite a bit, it's really fast. Like, if you go in, you will get taken away.
It's really deceiving because it's very smooth on the top, like glass. And it's only when you get in, and the other side of that, you've obviously got all the reeds and everything, because the other side to where we live, there's an oyster bed. So that tells you how clean the river actually is, the fact we've got an oyster bed the other side. You've got all the reeds, and then you've got bits of trees that have broken off that are stuck in there, and then the silt and things like that. So obviously it doesn't get dredged or anything like a canal does.
Yeah, you can get like quite a lot of birds, like kingfishers and swans and stuff.
But we are like a wildlife or bird motorway, because they're all on the way back to the reserve. So at night time you get some cracking views of and how they get over the bridge or under the bridge, some of the swans, at the pace they're going, and not get hit or something like that amazes me to just watch them. It's good. We're very lucky.